really an honor to have you as our special guest.
I echo that.
Pleasure.
Here we go.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to our Lunch and Learn.
Hi.
It's 12 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and
Hi.
get started. People will be joining us as they add in. Hi, Brianna. Nice to see you. Hi, Karen, Rich, John, Ian.
Hi.
Otto, happy Earth Day. It's Earth Day. Hi, thank you, Otto. It's so great to see everyone. Welcome. More people will be joining as we get started. We want to stay on time, so we're going to go ahead and start. I just want to welcome everyone for coming to our weekly Lunch and Learn. This is a new series from Autism Tree, and we had our first one last week. It was a great success with one of our moms and board members, Wendy Garofalo. It was wonderful. And this week, we're really honored to have Bobbi Hanna join us. Bobbi is an occupational therapist and a longtime volunteer and supporter of Autism Tree. I'm going to pass it over to Dana, but before I do that, I have to say, since we've moved everything virtually online, it's been a challenge, but we've been able to adapt really quickly. And the Lunch and Learn was the brainchild of our chairman of the board, Todd Hoff, and our founder. And I love that Todd came up with this idea because it's just another way to stay engaged with our community and keep engaged with all of you. So thank you, Todd. A couple of rules. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking, and we recommend a speaker view or grid view for presentation. Sharing your video is optional. We'd love to see your face if you want to share your video. And please put all your questions and comments into the chat. We will have a more extended question and answer session today with Bobbi. I'm going to pass it over to Dana, and she's going to go ahead and get us started.
Hi, ATPF family. So happy to see you. I'm really starting to grow an affection for Zoom when I see people like Heidi that I never get to see out there. Hi, Heidi Moker. If you are new to the ATPF family, I'm the volunteer executive director, and we started the foundation 16 years ago when my son Garrett was diagnosed with autism a little before age 3. And right now, I just wanted to take a moment to tell you how grateful I am for each of you and how this very, very difficult time of having to stay in our homes and just navigate so many different challenges. We have been, getting phone calls since before the schools closed from our families, just not knowing how to navigate shelter in place. So because of that, we started doing these videos that are short. They're on average 1 to 3 minutes. And right now we have over 51 of them on our YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribing, we would love you to subscribe. And when you're ever just having a moment at your house and you feel like you need a little bit more, just a diversion or an idea, you've got these great resources that are quick and easy to implement. We've had over 125,000 people using these videos since we started. And what's incredible is it's coming, schools are using them, agencies are using them. We are seeing other countries using our videos, and we just can be more grateful that we can be growing our community while this is happening and sharing with you and learning with you, and we want to continue that. We have taken the 20 programs that we have right away and analyzed which ones can we do virtually. Today, we've already had 18 virtual programs, and we're so excited to share with you that we will have 13 more coming up from now to the end of May. And we just simply could not do this without our dedicated group of volunteers. If you aren't getting a weekly e-news, or it's actually not an e-news, it's an email that goes out to over 400 volunteers. So if you would like to be part of that, let Rebecca know. And we we love our volunteers, and you're getting to hopefully know our volunteers and interns through what we launched in April during Autism Awareness Month is a reading with different volunteers and kiddos reading a children's book. So that's also been really exciting and fun for everybody during this really challenging time. And I just want to encourage you to stay connected and we're here for you. Bobbi Hanna is one of my favorite therapists that I've had the honor and pleasure of working with my own son. And the number one thing I learned from Bobbi right away is to follow your child's interests. And what Bobbi did is really unite our family under understanding what is occupational therapy. I think we had some of the most difficulty understanding why did our little toddler need occupational therapy when Todd was running a hospital and they had occupational therapists, and the occupational therapists were focused on helping people get back to work. So what we learned right away is every child with autism needs occupational therapy. And the reason is because autism affects one or more of our senses. And so during that process, we just really learned what are the sensory issues that trigger our son and how to get through it. And one of my favorite memories, Bobbi, with you, is we had a hard time with motion, like we couldn't put him in a grocery cart or go on a ride. He would want to throw himself out of rides. And we worked really hard on that with Bobbi. And I remember calling you from Legoland and just couldn't believe it because we've been working with Bobbi for quite a long time. And here we were at Legoland, and Garrett was finally on the train and wouldn't get off with Todd because he was having so much fun. And I just never imagined to be able to experience that. And one of the things that I've known for 16 years personally about Bobbi is that she is always constantly learning new things. And what motivates her is because she's working with a child and she is trying something new. Because with our kids, we never know what's going to be that next thing that helps them break through something they're having a challenge with. And the first time I went to Bobbi's center that she's the owner of Kids on the Point in Point Loma, I actually was just like, this is a slice of the big picture vision that we have, which is where the children are playing in more of a play-based environment, and there's no receptionist that you have to check in with behind the wall and the traditional waiting room, and you can't see your kids doing therapy. And Bobbi's always been so organic in her approach to doing therapy in a natural setting, meaning outdoors and in grounds and not in office buildings. And when Garrett was young, really forward to taking him to therapy with Bobbi because it was so much more play-based. And I'm so thankful, Bobbi, of what you brought to Autism Tree Project Foundation for the entire 16 years. It would take me too much time to talk about all the different roles that Bobbi has provided to our children and families, but she has led many programs. And it is truly an honor to be your friend, have you be our mentor, at first as a family and then as a patient. And I'm just so proud of all you do for not only the Autism Tree Project family, but the greater community at large through your work and through your company that you just opened, Kids on the Point. With deep gratitude of having you today, and thank you for doing our Lunch and Learn.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. Okay, Rebecca, am I on?
Yes, you are on.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody, and hello to all the ATPF families. So nice to see some of your faces and some other ones on there I recognize too. As Dana said, I'm co-owner of Kids on the Point OT. My business partner, Megan, is also on here too, though I can only see some of our faces at the moment, but Megan's here too. And we have a lot of fun at our clinic, and we're looking forward to having more fun when we get to open our doors back up. So today I just kind of wanted to talk to you about more like a round table of the things you're experiencing at home. We've been doing some Zoom calls with families and getting all kinds of different stories and insights to what's going on. So when they asked me to do this little talk today, I agreed to do it because I think that we can help and we can problem solve together as a community. So Rebecca, if you can go to the next slide. Okay, so the picture that you're looking at of the central nervous system is something that we use when we evaluate a new family and we have a parent meeting with our parents. And the reason that we use this pyramid, because it's so helpful in understanding behavior. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today, because that's a lot of the feedback that we're getting from parents and family. So if you look at this pyramid, at the top, you see academic learning, daily living activities, and behavior. That's where we use our cognition, our intellect, our social emotional, all those pieces that we hold together. During typical times outside of COVID, this is where kids hang out, like at school. They should be able to, the idea is that they would be at the top of that pyramid. But if you look at that pyramid, at the bottom of the pyramid are all the things that we as OTs get really interested in and trying to learn more about the child. And so we help parents to get educated that you have to look at the underlying building blocks at the bottom of that pyramid to be able to maintain your focus and attention for like your academic learning. So a typical OT evaluation is you look at all those different sensory systems, and then from that, you develop your sensory motor development, your perceptual motor skills, all those things that help us to be a good student and or as adults to be able to do our job, all those types of things. So let's go to the next slide. This is basically the same type of picture, but we've turned it upside down. And at the bottom now is all like the academics and things like that. So in this time of COVID, if you think about that, if you're wanting your child to be able to sustain at the top of that pyramid, but any of those little things are off, you can see when you turn this upside down, any sensory type of thing, any social emotional thing could just tip this pyramid over. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing and getting feedback from families. It's all these little things. They're telling us about the behavior, but what we want to talk about today is how to look below that surface so that we can help you as parents and anybody working with children how to identify the underlying pieces so that you get more, that the behavior makes more sense. And then you can come up with a way to shift and guide that. So let's go to the next slide. So this one I think is just really an easy one to understand, the anger iceberg. So if you think about an iceberg, you're only seeing what's on top of the surface of the water. And it could be anger over, I don't want to do my schoolwork. I don't want to be on another Zoom call. A parent may see that their child doesn't have attention to sustain for doing the academic work or whatever is expected. Maybe you have sibling issues going on at home. There's so many different things. So the top part of that water is what you're observing. That's your observation. But as therapists, and as what we like to try to teach parents, because we really want things to be child-led, you want to look under the surface of that iceberg. And there's where you're going to find the bottom of that pyramid. Do they have sensory issues? Do they have fear of going outside because they might catch COVID? What are they feeling worried about? Kids are expressing loneliness. They're missing their friends. What are their frustration levels? So when we can pick apart those things, then we're so much better equipped to helping them be more co-regulated with us and within the dynamics of the family. So if you could, Rebecca, if you could go, oh, and then I threw in a couple of visuals too, resources for families. So if you have a hard time having your child express themselves, this is just a visual way to start a conversation. So just identifying what your emotion is, getting in with the emotion. Am I happy, excited, angry, tired, sad, scared? And there's a gazillion more emotions. if you can get your child to identify what those feelings are, then you can start to do activities or include things to help switch that up and get them more regulated. So this is just an example of what you can do. And then also from other families, more so a lot for kids on the autism spectrum, that there's a lot of kids that would have sensory issues with wearing a mask. So I found this social story that was written about ways to help encourage wearing a mask. So there are lots of social stories out there because things are cropping up that we've never had to deal with in our lifetime before. So things like this social story for wearing a mask might help your child if your child is having a hard time with that concept. And then there's one more. Another one is, where do I wear shoes? The interesting thing about COVID now too is that it's great. A lot of kids, they're just in their PJs all day. They're barefoot and in their PJs. That's, to me, one of the nice things about all this is being comfortable. But the reality is, when it's over, we're going to go back out and we're going to have to wear clothes again and wear shoes. And shoes can be a really big deal for certain kids that have tactile and sensory issues. So I found this little social story written around shoes too. So if that's an issue in your home and thinking about going back out, this might be helpful for your child as well. So if we could go back to showing everybody's faces, that would be great. So I would just like to use this time to open it up to families to give examples of things that they might be struggling with. And I can help with answers with that. Anybody else that might be experiencing some of those same things too can jump in there. So
Bobbi, we got a question from Shelly Lana previous to today.
Okay.
And she says, what is the name of the company where you can purchase therapy equipment, hammock swings, the heavy duty rack to hang the equipment, the foam for the foam pit? She said she has a friend building a therapy room for a family in Colorado.
Okay, well, there's a lot of different companies out there. Oh my gosh, maybe I'll answer her. I could probably private message her. I tend to make a lot of things, so my mind goes to, oh, you can make your own crash pad. Upholstery Factory Outlet sells.
Yeah, Bobbi. It's my husband, Claudio, who's making it for a family. So as a contractor, I would need like therapy grade. I was thinking Southpaw was one of the,
That is
and I also remembered when Otto, over a decade ago, went to your facility, you had that amazing huge beam contraption where the stuff hooked on. So I know that that was a professional. So yeah, for our home, I made everything, but since this is for a family who does telehealth's great, but I'm going to build a therapy room for my kid. So that's what I was looking for, was that professional stuff that you had, just because they want it to be like their own private, as if it were a doctor's office. So, but we can talk about that later.
But that's a good question, because other people may be wondering that too. Southpaw has been around for many, many years. They also, in their catalogs and on their website, they have engineering diagrams. So if you're going to hang anything at home, you'd want to get a licensed contractor to know where your beams are and all that type of thing. But Southpaw has that really worked out in their documentation. They're expensive for home use. Outside of that, Amazon sells lots of different kinds of hammocks and swings and equipment.
And I'll make sure to share that information so you guys can maybe email each other after.
Mm-hmm.
I have a comment here from Jeff Snyder, who's joining us from Massachusetts.
Okay.
Jeff said, I also think that a lot of people with autism can be scared of seeing other people wearing masks. A good tactic would be to create a mask to help explain kids what they're going to expect when they go out in public. Do you have any comments on that, Bobbi?
I think that's such an awesome observation and realization on your part. I think that is so true. And I think even by your example of practicing making masks, the more you handle something, especially tactily, the more you handle it, process about it, it drives the fear down. And my idea along the same lines is that you could even take like a paper towel and shape it into the shape of a mask, and they could practice putting it on stuffed animals, on each other, so you role play. And the more the opportunity you have to role play and practice, then the anxiety decreases substantially. So that's a
yeah, that's not a bad idea. So
that's a great input.
Hi, Jeff.
hey, Dana, how you doing?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Rich, did you have a question? I saw you like raising your hand a little bit.
Yeah, should I just ask it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, my son, with his condition, he benefits by being redirected. And I feel like during this time, like an example would be when he goes to school, he might be frustrated in the morning, but before you know it, we're in the car and we're on the way to school. So he's been redirected. And then when he goes to math class, he gets frustrated with math, but then he gets redirected because he's now in a different class. And this is a normal day, but now with this COVID, he's in the same house in the same spot. So I feel like my tool has been taken away from me to redirect him, and I see him getting frustrated. But how do I redirect him when I can't go do the normal activities? So, anyways, that's just one of the challenges I've been running into. I mean, I try to come up with things like, let's go into the kitchen and take a snack break, but I mean, I wish it's not a very wide varying. I'm still in the same house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Your story is really a common one that we're hearing these days. I think, and again, you have to approach this child-led, because what works for one child may not work for another child. But I think as much as you can structure your day of what that school day is going to look like and all the other activities outside of that school day, and have your child help do to structure the schedule. Have them be a part of it, because if you have them help you with it, then they buy into those break times and all those other parts of the day. You're more likely to do that. And then when the kid if your child gets frustrated with an activity, and it's gonna happen, I mean, as adults, we're getting frustrated too. Mm-hmm. Helping them to take a pause and take a step back and ask them about, let's say it's a subject of math, and then let's say it's Spanish, but they lump it all in together. I can't do any of this. This is so hard. So then you reshape it and say, oh, well, what part of this is hard? Is it the multiplication tables, or is it learning your new Spanish vocab? So you try to break it down so they're not so overwhelmed with the whole picture of everything.
Yeah, try to break it down.
Breaking it down. And if you see your son's getting frustrated, God, taking breaks is great. And I personally feel we're in a time where we should be more child-led through this process. And schoolwork's important, but I also want you to think about the age of the child. If it's a 5-year-old child and they're not doing their schoolwork and they can't attend, if you think of a telephoto lens and you zoom in on that, like, okay, he's not doing this work and mom's getting frustrated. Okay, and then if you take your big wide lens and you open it up, is this next 2 or 3 months going to impact that kid getting into college? No. So give grace to yourself as parents and grandparents and whoever is helping with these families. Remember the bigger picture. If a child is really struggling on any particular day or time, if you think about that iceberg again and go beneath the level of the surface, there's probably stuff going on there. They have, you know, a lot of kids, they really struggle to express their emotions. So providing visuals, another really helpful tool for that, if your child has difficulty expressing, put a piece of paper and pencil down on the table. Just start drawing, and it's amazing what will come out through their drawings. They don't have to know the words, but just drawing it, giving them another tool than just speaking about it. And then to help if they're feeling frustrated, remember that movement, that could be your redirect, Rich, with your son. Movement can help redirect us off when we're feeling struck or anxious or agitated.
Okay.
Linear movement is calming to the nervous system. So like if you have a rocking chair in the house, that's predictable linear movement. Arrhythmical movement is more excitatory to the system. So if your child is more like sluggish and just not wanting to engage, you want to think about how to rough it all up to drive their nervous system up. If they're on overload, think of rhythmical types of things. Bouncing a ball back and forth to each other. It's predictable. It's a sense of rhythm and timing. There's a redirect. So things
Okay.
like
Sounds good. Check it out.
That's a great question, Rich. Thank you. We have another question from Mom Vania. Hi, Vania. She said, our son has not wanted to do much schoolwork during this time, but our son loves to bake and cook and make food. So we've been baking up a storm. And he's learning a lot through the process, including math, reading, socializing, working together. There's learning we can evoke through all forms of play. Thank you, Vania, for sharing that. That's key.
Spot on. That's what I'm talking about. So if they don't want to do their worksheet that's provided from school, find out what, look at the worksheet and what's the purpose of the worksheet. What's the learning to be learned from that worksheet? Take that, what they're supposed to learn, apply it to their interests, and you can accomplish the same thing through like cooking, gardening, exercise. There's so many different ways of it being child-led at this time. I'm not saying schoolwork's not important, because it is, but modify it. Learn to modify it, not be so hard on yourselves.
Mm-hmm. I see another comment here from Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff says school can be difficult when it comes to distance learning, especially for someone in special education. Do you have any comments on that, Bobbi?
I would agree. It is very challenging. I was on a call with a mom yesterday. She has 3 children. Her 5-year-old was expected to be on Zoom learning for 3 to 4 hours a day. She's got a second child who's on his Zoom call with his teacher. She's running back and forth between the computers. One of her sons has, a different learning style. It's humanly impossible at best to be able to do that. So that, to me, goes back to that pull that lens back and look at the whole picture. With special ed kids, it is very challenging. I think that's where you really take a look at meeting the child where they're at. And if they're expected to do, let's say, 5 math problems, maybe they show their competency by finishing just 2 and be happy with that. And again, looking at, okay, what part of this can you do and what part can't you do?
Yeah. Bobbi, I have a question that I think many parents have that are dealing with this at home. A lot of our parents are home and they're working full-time or part-time. And I've talked to a lot of moms, and Rebecca can probably attest to this too, because we're getting new intakes every week like we always do during this time, that are having a lot of guilt about having to put their kid in front of a screen while they're working. So they're putting on a movie or they're putting on a screen time, and it's supposed to be 30 minutes, and that turns into an hour, and their meeting goes longer. And before you know it, your kid has had 2 hours of screen time because you had a work meeting, and they're combating a lot of parenting guilt about that, moms and dads. Sure. So what is your tip on that? Like, what would you what is your advice or guidance on that?
Love yourself and trust yourself as a parent, right? If you're going to have good days and bad days too as a parent. So if you have a meeting that you have to attend to, well, you're going to do what you're going to do to get through it. Again, if you pull that lens back, is that really going to damage your child in the long run?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. Do you want that to be a habit? No. Screen time has its place. It has its place for learning. A lot of kids will go to screen time or books right now because that's their place where they can just unwind and let it go. They can let everything else go and just get absorbed. We, as adults, do the same. In our household right now, we're both working from home. And I know when about 7 o'clock hits, we're going to watch something on Netflix. I almost don't care what it is because we get to let everything else go. Would I do that all the time? No, but during this time, yes, I'm holding on. That's my unwind at the end of the day kind of thing. I'm not going to feel guilty. You do what you need to do to make it through each day. And remember too that some days are going to look better than other days. You might have like really rough day, and that's okay. Life is like that. It's very dynamic. It changes all the time. And then you might have a better day the next day. It doesn't mean the whole thing's shot to hell in a handbasket. You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. But just not to be so hard with the guilt part. I am hearing a lot of that too with the guilt part. And these are unprecedented times that we're in. In our history of our society, none of us have ever dealt with this before. So I say give yourself grace and just keep doing the best that you can with what you have. And, there's a lot of good in this time too. A lot of kids are more relaxed than being in a school setting, especially special ed kids with the demands of being in a classroom and having to perform. This is a little bit more of a downtime for them.
Yeah, I see a comment here from Otto. Thank you, Otto. Otto says, I find unrealistic expectations from teachers at this time.
Yes.
And I think maybe a lot of our kids are feeling that.
So I had this same mom that I was talking about with yesterday. Her children go to a private school. And I think what's happening, possibly because they paid their tuition and the teachers are probably feeling pressure from their administrators. They've paid for this curriculum. By God, you're going to teach it to them. And probably same to some degree maybe in public schools too. This is from the higher ups. We got to get this out there. But you as a parent have the final say on how you're going to. I just don't think you should have guilt around that. I think kids are doing the best they can, and I think parents are doing the best they can, and I think these teachers are too. They have administrators above them. It is a stressful thing for everyone, and I just, it's not going to last forever, and I say we just make the best of what we have and have that grace with it.
I mean, Heidi's joining us from Wisconsin, Heidi Moker. Heidi is a Head Start teacher. Heidi, do you have any comments on that right now, like the expectations that are being placed on teachers at this time?
I think what Bobbi was saying is right. It's coming from like my Head Start there in New York, and their support center really has no idea what the parents are going through, what the families are going through, even what the teachers are going through. I mean, I spend the majority of my day talking to parents who are just worried about losing their job, feeding their children, giving them diapers. So the expectation is, yes, that we're doing the educational component, but there also has to be a little bit of a give and a take, because that's not realistic. And we are finding that there is a lot of guilt on the teachers' end too, is like, will I not get paid? if I don't do this? The parents aren't responding, the parents are worried, but will I not get paid? So I think it's just, everyone's nervous, everyone's scared, everyone has guilt. But what I tell my teachers, at the end of the day, you do the best you can, but it's that emotional, you know, connected as a human level that's more important than the educational level right now.
I think that's a really good point. If you think about the traditional school year, and some schools are getting a lot better about this. If you think about your child's education at school, how much of that time is spent on the social, emotional, and mental health? Right? Not a lot. All of it's on academics.
Right.
Let's take this time to focus on the social, emotional, and mental health of our children. Why not? To me, it's a great opportunity to really dig deeper in that and support that part of your child's education. It should be a part of their education for all schools. I don't know. I strongly believe in that whole mental health component of all of this too.
I can piggyback on that too from the families that I've been working with throughout this time. Is one of the silver linings of this COVID is that it's putting the power back into the parents' hands, and they're finding like, oh, I can be really creative and I have lots of good ideas. If I can trust to follow my instinct, I can get these same end goals done in maybe a more creative way. So maybe your child can't sit to do his math problems, but gosh, you take him outside with a piece of chalk on the sidewalk and there he goes to get his math problems done. So it's really kind of like what Bobbi was saying too, is taking that zoom out bigger and thinking, okay, should my end goal really be to finish this product or this, worksheet, or should it be about that process of supporting my child in whatever ways that I need to, so that they can attend and participate and feel good about the process and not feel defeated or deflated about it. So I think one of the greatest things about this COVID is that it's allowing parents to find that power again that you all have. It's just finding more creative ways to tap into that and to mix up the way that we do that.
Thank you for sharing that, Megan. That's also important. I want to make sure that if you have a question, we have about 5 minutes left before we close it out, that you're able to ask it now. If anybody wants to unmute and ask a question or raise their hand, I can call them out or make a comment. I just have to say that, how many of you have kids that are affected, that are neurodiverse with autism or speech delay? Can you just raise your hand if you do? So I would say that the majority of our kids, if they aren't getting occupational therapy now, they've received it in their past if they're older, or maybe they're still getting it now. I mean, Bobbi, I know, treats kids of all ages. If there's one thing you could leave us with, Bobbi, that would be for, as parents, as teachers, as educators, as community members, as grandparents, all of us here, we have a real mixed bag today with almost 30 people. What would you say would be the one thing that we could take with us to move forward with tomorrow?
I think the number one important thing, whether it's with your child, with your spouse, with a friend, is just to slow down and be present. And it's much more powerful to be a listener than it is to be the talker. So being present and being okay with times of silence with your child. If your child's really struggling and you can't get answers out of them or whatever it may be, just being there next to them, sitting with them, writing out the wave of what's going on. Being present is very powerful. And through that, I think your child can then start to relax and you can open up more of a dialogue, being calm and breathing. Remember, Taking breaths is one way to influence the vagal nervous system. When we are in the amygdala, fright and flight part of our brain, our frontal cortex doesn't even begin to process stuff. So until you're calm, your child's really not going to process what you're saying anyway, or spouse for that matter. So finding ways to be in that calm state. And remember, rhythmic movement is calming. Predictable is calming. Arrhythmic will rev you up.
Yeah, thank you, Bobbi. I wanted to share, Michelle had a comment. She said, I have a lot of clients that are later in years of high school or college age. I've been having them spend time watching some really helpful and inspirational TED Talks to stay positive. We
Yeah.
too stick to a schedule and structure so we can stay on track and not feel so lost. In addition, as a mom, I've been adding in recess and physical ed times into our schedules, and that's been very helpful. I have to say, Michelle, thank you for sharing that. I have a 2.5-year-old, and now every morning when he wakes up, the first thing we do is we go for a walk. First thing we do is we get out of the house and we walk anywhere from half a mile to 2 miles, depending on the day. But he's waking up ready to go. And then when we come back, it's like he's calm, he's breathed, he's regulated, and now he's ready to kind of like start the day. But that's like a game changer for us and for me as a parent. I think that helps set the tone for my day. Also, we're just walking, the 6-block radius of our neighborhood, but it just helps regulate that.
Yep, we've been doing that too, as well as at night as a family, just going and taking like a mile or 2 walk, where we never really did that before. And in doing that, you're having conversations with your kids about their day and about things that you may not have ever had the chance to do. And it's pretty special and could be a silver lining that we take from this. I was like, oh, gosh, I don't know why we don't do this more often. So it's kind of, if you could take anything from it, it's that,
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. Well, you guys were right at 12:45.
I definitely want to say the last thing on our lunch and learn is just, I think it's a beautiful thing to come together, even if every time we just get to see each other and we get to take one thing away from it. I think every day right now, everybody's having really unique challenges. And I just feel in gratitude for all of you for showing up for Lunch and Learn, and for Bobbi for taking time to really inspire us and encourage us today. And I want to keep doing that. So I hope we see you again soon, and just know that our heartbeat is really big for each of you and for your families and your children. And we will continue to do all we can each day to be a source of encouragement that you can just plug into quickly. And on that note, I want to say we welcome any of you to get involved with the videos that we're doing, because I think it just really lights people up when they get to continue to get to know each other, see people in their own homes, meet your dogs, meet your kids. I saw Rich had Brett in the background earlier. I want to give a shout out to Brett. And just to say to all of you, I feel a lot of love for you. And if I haven't met you, I'm really loving getting to know you through your comments, and just encourage you to stay connected. And thank you for spending this time together today, and have a beautiful rest of your week.
Thank you, guys. We'll be sending out a email, and we'll be posting the link. Everybody have a great day.
Especially the pyramids. If we could get the pyramids, that would be great.
Yes, we're sending those out in an email in the next 10 minutes.
Thank you, Bobbi. Thank you, Dana. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Bobbi. Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.